Our weather's getting more erratic every year. You look at forest fires keep getting worse and worse. The drought thing. It's like these corny movies that we all laughed at. Now all of a sudden we're like, well, we're actually seeing that.
What's up, guys?
So excited to talk about some climate change solutions with you guys.
Same. Honor to be here with you both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm well aware of your work, and I'm just excited to be in the same room.
Climate change is real, and it affects us. But I feel like the way to get people motivated to change is it's catastrophic, but it's not unfixable.
Seeing the human impact that we have, that's ultimately what spurred me to start Players for the Planet, and I simply just wanted to do my part. Obviously, superstar rock climber, you've climbed all over the world, and then your work with National Geographic and being abroad and seeing the changes firsthand, what these different regions of the world are going through.
The number one thing with climate change is the temperatures go up. That's how we're losing all of our poles, making it untenable to even be outside in certain places of the world. There's areas in Saudi Arabia where between the temperatures outside and at 100% humidity that it's actually like people are just dying literally from being outside.
As an outdoor professional athlete, like the outdoors are our playground, and you experience the loss of friends due to melting snowpack and increased avalanche danger. There's crazy weather patterns that are loosening rocks and killing people. And it's like, how long do we have? Can we continue to recreate in these areas that we love? Or is it just gonna become like increasingly more dangerous, and the extreme risks of our sport become less about human error and more about the environmental risks?
The days of sport that we lose in general, across the globe, and looking to Australia as the heat increases there, but you look at what's happened in Oregon and Washington, and a lot of these states have had to mandate temperature, mandates where you cannot practice outdoors if it's at a set, if it's at a certain number. And the more days a year that we have at 95 plus, the more days of sport we're going to lose. And so you look at this microcosm of sports and you compare this to what climate change means globally, not just for the fortunate, 1% of the wealthiest populations create roughly 95% of the emissions. And at the end of all this, most of this is going to affect those who are less fortunate, are going to suffer from desertification in, sub-Saharan Africa or in the Middle East as, this continues to dry up their climate, their farms. And I think that's largely what you're seeing, like this mass exodus of some of these places where they no longer have a livelihood because of climate change, where they're having to pick up and go literally greener pastures just to make a living.
It's going to be really difficult to change things in a way. Human accountability is notoriously and historically, you can't just rely on people to make changes without some form of good leadership that makes sense. And I know there's good players, but there's so many bad players.
Yeah.
We can't rely on corporations to do the right thing, because the whole point of a corporation is to make a profit, right? And the problem is if you're not growing, or if you are growing, you're making more stuff. You're making more stuff. You have to make consumables. Otherwise, what's the point? It has to come at the legislated level. There has to be penalties involved because people are incentivized by things like that.
In 2009, when I was at the UN 350 campaign, was 350 parts per million. If we exceed that, then we're looking at these half degrees, and eventually, to get to 400, which is the absolute, it's going to be catastrophic if we get to 400. And here we are, 11 years later, and we literally just shot through. We're going to shoot through it, and now we're seeing the effects. But looking at 2008, 2009, when I first started this, where we were at, it was already panic time. We had 10 years. It said in every piece of literature, it was we have 10 years to get it together to meet these demands by this time. And now here we are, it's 2021, and we're like, all right, well, let's do 10 years, 2030. Yeah. Okay, 2050, we're gonna cut all emissions and be net zero by 2050. And it's no, this is not how it works. It's not how this was ever supposed to work.
Humans make big changes when there's a catastrophe, right? That's when everybody bands together sort of temporarily and tries to fix it. But right now, if you live in a community, like if you live in the middle of the country, you live in a place where you don't have ocean access, when you hear things about the ocean, you might care for a minute, but then you're gonna go back to your normal life, right? At present, the best chance we have is like people like you talking about this and people like you talking about this and trying to get people to make the smallest or the biggest changes they're willing to make, to take on a little bit more of what we would consider inconvenience, even though it wasn't inconvenient 20 years ago. You know what I mean? A lot of these things are newer habits, like habits that have happened over the last 100 to 150 years. It's not impossible to break them. And we should have enough data to realize that we don't have to continue doing things the way we're doing them. The digital age should be this incredible time of innovation and making things better.
But I feel like what you're doing with the Players for the Planet is like, yeah, climate change is real, but this is how we can do our part to actually be making a sustainable future.
It's just reading about what I could do better, and it just so happened to be very coincidental. I read one article and saw the effect that one plastic bottle could have, and then flipping 2 more pages and seeing this Stop Global Warming campaign for just a simple bottle. So like, okay, 1 plastic bottle equals 1,000 years in a landfill, and then like looking to the right of me, and there's a 50-gallon trash can that gets filled up with plastic bottles every single day. If we have 50 guys in the clubhouse and we use 700 bottles a day, we're using almost 2,500, 3,000. Wait, there's 120 minor league teams. So just on that stat alone, we're using a significant amount of plastic. And then you factor in the big league team, 30 big league teams who have far more access and amenities available to them. On any given night, we're using almost 4.5 million single-use plastic bottles in one night. We play 162 games a year. So every single night we're going through this stuff, and I'm like, all right, I got to figure out something to do. So that's how I started it. I sent in a press inquiry. If we can cut down on half of our plastic use for the rest of the season, can we get through the use of reusable water bottles? And that was it. Like, that was the start of my journey.
Have you noticed that stadiums are making changes?
No. We still don't get it.
Why do you think?
Literally, we have, especially going back to COVID, every meal is served in single-use plastic, every shake, every nutrition thing is served in single-use plastic. There is no alternative because of that. So like you said, the exponential increase in plastic is unfathomable. But also when you look at some of our athletes, I'm like, hey, guys in Colorado, do you guys have in-wall refillable stations? Nope. Arizona, it's just such an uphill battle to just get one station. And even then, even when they're like, okay, we'll do that, we'll get one thing, then who do you think jumps in? Who do you think would be the biggest barrier to switching the consumer's mindset off of plastic?
Especially companies?
Exactly. Then you have to deal with Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah.
Wait, is that going to affect, Dasani, we need to have our Dasani products here. Again, it's like these ridiculous uphill battles that we have to do.
People that are making money are the ones that are driving the decisions. And so until you can get away from that, and the problem is you'll never get away with that without some high-level authoritative decision that...
Right, they can change it in an instant. That's what bothers me the most. It's like they claim, okay, cool, let's use 10% less in our caps, but ultimately, no, this had the way that we manufacture and the way that we present these products completely has to change, where this shouldn't be a barrier. Like, it should just be best practices. This is something that the athletes want to do and the organization wants to do, and even it becomes difficult. And I hear it from my athletes, all the time, as far as the lack of resources that they have.
Do you feel like the majority of players now are very accepting of things that they can get better at?
No, because I think we'd definitely have a lot more athletes on our roster if it was being widely accepted. Perfect example, Daniel Norris, one of our guys, was talking about being the annoying guy, and he's sitting next to Brent Suter, who's like a notorious annoying guy. Hey guys, use your bottles, don't use plastic, stuff like that. Under that context, she shouldn't be annoying. It should be accepted, and that's kind of the answer, is I get it. I understand where we are, how I can do better, and that's the biggest hurdle, is to take guys who didn't grow up like this and then suddenly ask them to reprogram their habits when they're so routine oriented.
I can't imagine going to the coffee shop without my mug. But I feel like building those patterns of the ease by which you can be more sustainable is at least like a start.
And who cares if people start getting frustrated with it if it's working? You just need a constant reminder. Your decisions they matter.
I think of a lot of people that I know who meat, if a meal doesn't have meat, it doesn't count as a meal. And it's like, as a nation, we consume so much meat, and that is so toxic for the environment. But then,
and it's the four same animals too.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many different sources of protein. We focus on fish, pork, and chicken and beef. It's like, wow, cool.
But then like there's athletes like Lewis Hamilton who talks a lot about being vegan, or at least plant-based. That's really cool, because I think if your Players Alliance within Players for the Planet, people are gonna be so inspired by more athletes talking about the health benefits of how they can be like a super jacked dude who's at the top of their sport while eating like a plant-based diet. And that's even good for the environment. The climb is big in front of us, but I feel like it's not like non-manageable if we just apply.
Yeah, just from using the platform of sport, having 20, 30,000, 40,000 fans every single night at a stadium, you have the opportunity to integrate best practices. Like, you can use every single game as a learning tool. You know, compost, what do you do with your compost? How can you, integrate, sustainable packaging, get rid of plastic, and start to instill some of these behaviors that people can take home from the game. Like, cool, leave with your jersey, leave with your team hat, but also leave with this best practice to look to better yourself at home.
Education, around what can we do? Like, what are basic solutions, all the way up to the top-down legislation that needs to be changed. It's a daunting task, but I feel like you're providing really easy changes that you could make. Okay, so if you guys are gonna do one piece of advice for people out there of what they can change immediately, what would be your token of advice?
Consume less. If you consume less, there's less chance you're gonna reduce your carbon footprint immensely.
Yeah, reuse and repurpose. We don't have to go out and, buy new stuff. Though we have the necessary means to use what we already have and to get away with it. You'd be surprised if we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations and we adapt to it. We'd be shocked. It'd be like, you know what? I really don't need all this stuff.
There's also, I guess, like the other thing that you can do is be more aware of investing too. You can do carbon offsets. There's also really great impact investment companies where like consider where, if you have the privilege to be investing your dollar, that you're not supporting like the plastic generators in the world.
Really, if we all collectively make some form of change, it makes a tremendously big difference. Doing the right thing takes effort. It takes the desire to do so.
Within the professional sports and amateur sports community, we have this understanding of things that affect us and how to band together to create solutions on the field. There's no reason that we can't take that same mindset and band together as teammates and understand how all this stuff affects us, how it affects our sport, how it affects our home, and how to find solutions to win at life, win at the environment, basically.
This has been so awesome to sit down with you guys. I mean, you both are such legends in what you do, so really valuable conversation.
Not to mention, like, finally gets a vent for once. We're talking about annoying guys. It's like, you can't just turn to the guy on the plane next to you and be like, listen, we're in deep shit.
Hey, buddy, you really gonna take that plastic cup?
Yeah. We need to continue this purpose, and like you said, it's just about optimism.
Yeah.
The feeling is mutual. It's great talking to you both. It helps so much, and I hope that people that watch this can glean a little bit of influence off of something that was said during the conversation to start on that road of making some change, because it's gonna take us all.